Johnny Carson started as a young magician from Nebraska, dreaming big and making people laugh. By the 1960s he took over The Tonight Show, becoming the king of late-night TV. His quick wit and legendary interviews made him a household name for over 30 years. But behind the laughter, Carson had fierce rivalries. In this video we reveal the top 5 celebrities he clashed with, and the untold stories behind their feuds. Number 5 is Wayne Newton, the legendary entertainer known as Mr. Las Vegas. For decades, Newton dazzled audiences with his powerful voice and showmanship on the Las Vegas Strip. But in the early 1980s, a bitter feud erupted between Newton and Johnny Carson. It started with Carson's monologues, where he repeatedly joked about Newton's high-pitched singing voice, his flamboyant style, and even questioned his masculinity on national television. Carson's jokes became a running gag. He would say things like, "Wayne Newton is the only man who can hit notes that make dogs howl," or poke fun at Newton's sequined costumes. The audience laughed, but for Newton, the constant ridicule began to sting. Publicly, Newton tried to brush it off with a smile, but in interviews years later he admitted the jokes hurt his reputation and made him the target of tabloid headlines. "It was humiliating," Newton said. "People started to question who I was." The breaking point came when Newton saw a headline mocking him after another Carson joke. Furious, he stormed into NBC studios in Burbank, unannounced, determined to confront Carson face to face. Newton marched down the hallway, burst into Carson's dressing room and slammed the door. According to Newton, he told Johnny, "If you ever say that again, I'll kick your ass, on camera or off. I won't take it anymore." Carson, caught completely off guard, reportedly apologized and never made another joke about Newton on air. But the damage was done. Their relationship was shattered. After that confrontation, Wayne Newton was quietly blacklisted from The Tonight Show. Carson's team made sure he was never booked again, and Newton never forgave him. In later interviews, Newton reflected, "That was the one man in this business I never liked, and I think he knew it." The feud became legendary in show business, a rare case of someone standing up to Johnny Carson and walking away from his empire. The fallout changed both men. Newton focused on his Las Vegas career, becoming an icon in his own right, while Carson's reputation for holding grudges only grew. Their story remains one of the most dramatic and personal feuds in late-night history. Number 4 is comedy legend Bob Hope, a man whose name was once synonymous with American entertainment and a frequent guest on The Tonight Show. On camera, Johnny Carson and Bob Hope appeared to share a warm, respectful relationship. Hope was a fixture of film, television, and live comedy, and his appearances always drew big ratings. But behind the scenes, things were different. Hope insisted that every appearance be tightly scripted. His team would send over pages of jokes and cue cards, expecting Johnny to set up each punchline exactly as written. Carson, who thrived on spontaneity and real conversation, found this process stifling. He once joked to a staff writer, "With Bob, I'm just the guy holding the cards." Over the years, Carson's frustration grew. Hope would arrive with his own writers, sometimes ignoring Johnny's questions and barreling through his prepared material, regardless of the flow of the show. According to one longtime Tonight Show staffer, it was like watching two different shows. Johnny wanted a conversation, Bob wanted a performance. By the 1980s, Johnny dreaded Hope's visits. In interviews, Carson would sometimes make sly remarks about guests who bring their own scripts, a not-so-subtle jab at Hope. Hope's age only made things more difficult. He would sometimes lose his place, interrupt Johnny, or ignore questions entirely, sticking to his cue cards no matter what. Eventually, Carson began phasing Hope out. After decades of appearances, one of America's biggest stars was quietly no longer welcome. There was no public blow-up, just a cold, professional distance that never thawed. In the end, the feud between Johnny Carson and Bob Hope was never about headlines or drama. It was about two legends with very different ideas of what made great television, and a friendship that faded into silence. At number 3, Joan Rivers. This was not just a feud, it was a heartbreak that changed late-night television forever. Johnny Carson discovered Joan Rivers in the 1960s, inviting her to guest host The Tonight Show when few others would take a chance. Their chemistry was electric. Audiences loved their quick banter and mutual respect. Rivers became a regular guest host, famously filling in for Johnny more than any other comedian. Behind the scenes, Johnny mentored Joan, offering advice, encouragement, and even notes on her monologues. In private letters, he praised her sharp wit and told her she had what it took to succeed in late-night television. By the mid-1980s, Some insiders believed Joan was the natural successor to Carson, but in 1986, Fox offered her a groundbreaking deal to host her own late-night show. Rivers agonized over the decision, even attempting to call Johnny to explain, but he never took her call. The news broke in the press before Johnny heard it from Joan. Headlines blared about the late-night shakeup, and the media swarmed both stars for comment. Carson felt blindsided and deeply betrayed. That night, Johnny reportedly told NBC executives, "She's finished here. She will never appear on my show again." He meant it. Rivers was immediately blacklisted from The Tonight Show, and Johnny refused all contact. No calls, no letters, nothing. The media covered the fallout relentlessly. Tabloids speculated about angry phone calls and broken friendships. For Joan, the professional cost was enormous. Her Fox show struggled, and she was shunned by much of the late-night world. Years later, Joan Rivers spoke openly about the pain. "I adored Johnny. He was my mentor. Losing that friendship broke my heart." Carson, however, never forgave her. He took the grudge to his grave, and Joan was never invited back. Despite the setback, Joan Rivers rebuilt her career, hosting red carpet specials, winning awards, and inspiring a new generation of comedians. But the shadow of her feud with Johnny Carson remained one of the most talked-about stories in show business. Number 2, Frank Sinatra, Ol' Blue Eyes. Sinatra was a frequent guest on The Tonight Show, and his appearances were always an event. On camera, Carson and Sinatra seemed friendly, but behind the scenes, their relationship was tense. Sinatra was notorious for his long list of demands. He wanted his dressing room just so, insisted on certain lighting, and even requested that the band play his favorite arrangements. According to NBC insiders, Sinatra would send a list of topics that were off-limits and expected Carson to avoid any mention of his personal life or rumored connections. One biographer recalled, "Sinatra treated every appearance like a negotiation, not a conversation." Carson, who prided himself on running his own show, bristled at Sinatra's attempts to control the set. In one famous incident, Sinatra demanded that no other major celebrity be booked on the same night as him. Carson reportedly rolled his eyes and told his staff, "If Frank wants the spotlight, let him have it, but not at my expense." The tension peaked in the late 1970s when Sinatra's team sent Carson a list of approved topics. Johnny famously threw the paper down and said, "Nobody tells me how to do my show, not even Sinatra." After that, Sinatra's appearances became rare, and the chill between them was obvious to those in the know. As one Tonight Show writer put it, Johnny respected talent, but he couldn't stand being pushed around. With Sinatra, it was always a power struggle. Their relationship never recovered. For the rest of Carson's career, Sinatra was rarely seen on the show, and when he was, the warmth was gone, replaced by a cool professional distance. And finally, number 1, Tom Snyder, the host of The Tomorrow Show, a man who became Johnny Carson's fiercest late-night rival. Unlike the others on this list, Carson's rivalry with Snyder was all about competition for guests, ratings, and network attention. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, The Tomorrow Show aired right after The Tonight Show. Snyder's interviews with stars like John Lennon, Charles Manson, and Howard Cosell often made headlines, sometimes before Carson could even book them. Carson was furious when high-profile guests like Paul McCartney and Alfred Hitchcock chose Snyder's show first. He saw it as a direct threat to his dominance. According to NBC insiders, Johnny once stormed into a programming meeting demanding, "If Snyder books them first, I don't want them. That's war." Carson pressured NBC to move The Tomorrow Show to a later time slot and even lobbied for exclusive booking rights. In interviews, he publicly downplayed the rivalry, but off-camera, he made sure his team kept a close eye on Snyder's guest list and ratings. Over time, the rivalry took its toll. Snyder's show was eventually pushed to a later slot and lost network support, while Carson's grip on late night remained unchallenged. Their relationship never recovered, and the feud became a defining chapter in late-night television history. Johnny Carson's legendary feuds reveal more than just personal conflicts. They show us the pressures and passions behind the laughter. Each rivalry, whether public or private, shaped not only Carson's career, but the very fabric of late-night television. Some wounds never healed. Carson and Joan Rivers, for example, never reconciled. But others, like Wayne Newton, eventually found peace in moving on. These stories remind us that even icons are human, with pride, pain, and the capacity to forgive or hold on. Through it all, Carson's wit, charm, and relentless drive set the standard for generations of hosts. His ability to connect with audiences, even while navigating personal battles, is a testament to his talent and resilience. Today the lessons from Carson's triumphs and trials continue to inspire. His story is a reminder that greatness is not just about success, but about how we handle adversity, competition, and change. Which of these stories surprised you the most? Did you know about the showdown with Wayne Newton, or Carson's heartbreak over Joan Rivers? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey through Hollywood history, hit that like button and subscribe for more untold stories. Johnny Carson's legacy lives on, in every laugh, every lesson, and every late-night moment that followed.